Hi everyone, welcome to Oregon Law Lab. As you can see, my children are not in school. One of them wants me to fix the iPad.
Here you go, Mom.
What's the matter? Usually we do interviews on this show, but I wanted to do a separate episode that explains the new family leave law that Congress just passed. It's called the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And I wanted to help you understand whether you're eligible to take leave if, for example, you're like me and your children are not in school. So the first thing to know is, do you need leave at all? For example, if you can work remotely, then you don't need to take leave from your job. You just continue to do your job and get paid. Of course, you need permission from your employer to do that. If you get sick, however, and you can't even telework, or if you have a job where you have to show up in person, then that's when leave becomes really important. One of the problems with the new law is that it has a lot of exclusions. So it's not the case that everyone is going to be able to get leave if their child's school is closed, or if they get sick, or if they're caring for somebody who's sick. Man, it's cold out here. So, are you covered by this law? The next question you need to ask is, how many employees work at your company? Because Congress added an exclusion if you work for a big company that employs 500 or more workers, you're not covered by this new law at all. If you work for a big company like Walmart, you have to fall back on Walmart's policies that they've developed and any protections that you have under state law. So, for example, before the coronavirus outbreak, around 10 states, but a lot of large municipalities as well, had some sick leave law that allowed you to take sick leave. Also, state legislatures are starting to act on this. So, for example, New York is working on a new sick leave law specifically for the coronavirus outbreak. So you might get protection under that law. Otherwise, you're just stuck with whatever sick leave your company offers or vacation, if you're lucky enough to have accrued vacation. Let's say you work for a company that's smaller than 500, which is about, I think it's about half of workers in the country. If you work at a company with less than 500 employees, then you are covered by the new law. However, there's another exception. If you work for a company with 50 or less employees, there's a little tiny, well, it's not a tiny exception, for if complying with the new law or might threaten to put your employer out of business. However, this particular law should not cost your employer a lot of money because it's paid for by tax credits. And what happens is when you take sick leave or family leave under this new law and you get paid, your employer gets a tax credit from the federal government in the amount of wages that it paid you, as well as an additional subsidy for the healthcare premiums that it pays for you while you are out. Okay, so let's say that you work for a company with less than 500 employees and it's not a small employer that's about to go out of business. What kind of leave can you expect? Well, yet again, here's another complication. It depends on the reason why you're out. So, Congress provided the most extensive protections for parents caring for children whose schools or childcare centers have been closed. There's two kinds of leave available for people whose children's schools have been closed. One of them is sick leave, and the other one is paid family and medical leave. Okay, the sick leave provides for 2 weeks of pay while you are out. The amount that you can get is minimum wage or 2/3 of your wage, but in any event, no more than $200 a day. Okay, so that's for 2 weeks. Now, the second type of leave that you have available to you is a new kind of family and medical leave. Family and medical leave used to only be for your serious health condition or essentially caring for someone else with a serious health condition, but they extended it for people whose children's schools have been closed in connection with the coronavirus outbreak. And they made it paid. You would get paid essentially the same amount for 12 weeks. Okay? But here's yet another complication. The first 2 weeks of that leave is unpaid. Okay, so it's 2 weeks unpaid, then 10 weeks of pay at 2/3 of your pay, up to $200 a day. Okay, what do you do though about that first 2 weeks that's unpaid if your child's school is closed for a really long time? Well, you have two options. One thing you can do is request family and medical leave right away as soon as the law goes into effect. And that's going to be no later than April 5th. We're not sure exactly which day, but the last date that it will be enacted is April 5th. So, April 5th, what you can do is you can tell your employer, I would like the family and medical leave starting now. And that gives you 12 weeks. And then what you can do is you can use the sick leave to pay for the first 2 weeks. So the sick leave and the family and medical leave run at the same time, or as we say in legal circles, you can ask for it to run concurrently. So the result of that will be is that you'll get 2/3 of your pay for the entire 12 weeks. The only downside is you don't get that extra 2 weeks unpaid. So if you think you'll need a longer leave, like 14 weeks, it might be better to use the sick leave and then request FMLA coverage, and then you'll get 12 weeks, but that you've got a pay gap right there. All right, that's for people whose schools have been closed. What about if you're home for another reason? The only pay replacement you can get is through the sick leave law. The sick leave law also covers if you think you have the coronavirus and you're seeking medical attention. It also covers if you're under a state order for quarantine or isolation. It also covers if you are caring for somebody who is under quarantine or isolation or has been ordered by a healthcare provider to self-isolate. For those folks, you get 2 weeks of sick leave. If it's for your own illness, you actually get your full wage up to $500 a day. Okay, if it's for your own illness or your own quarantine or isolation or self-isolation directed by a healthcare provider. If you are caring for somebody else who is sick, isolated, like we just said, then it's capped out at $200 a day. Okay, that's for 2 weeks. Well, what happens after 2 weeks? What if you're sick for a much longer period of time? What if you get seriously ill from the coronavirus, for example? Or what if you're caring for a family member who gets seriously ill? In that case, Congress did not provide any additional paid leave for you. Your only remaining option is the old Family and Medical Leave Act from 1993, or if your state has a paid leave law that's more generous or that covers more companies, you can use that. The old Family and Medical Leave law has a number of exclusions and limitations. You know, this is like Swiss cheese. There's just so many exceptions. You will only be covered if you have been working at that company for more than a year and you have worked more than 1,250 hours in the last year. And the old Family and Medical Leave law only covers companies with 50 or more employees. So if you're at a small company, you're not covered by the Family and Medical Leave Act. Unless, again, you live in a state that has a more generous law. So what you would do in that situation is use up your regular sick leave, and if you become seriously ill, if you're seriously ill after 2 weeks, you request family and medical leave. It's unpaid, but at least it provides some job protection for you. The job protection is not absolute. For example, if your company starts to go under and it's doing a big layoff and your position is the one that gets terminated along with others, they're allowed to do that. It's really just they can't terminate you because you've been on this leave. They have to treat you like everybody else. But FMLA provides some legal protection for your job if you are out. If you have other questions for me, put them in the comments and I'll look into doing another video on topics relating to these types of questions. See you later.